All right, I hope y'all have your forks and your bibs ready because we got a meal for y'all today. Today I got my boy Virtue with me. Say, everybody.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back here again. I'd love to be back. We're about to cook as usual with a pretty fire topic, so glad to be back.
Again, I have you on a Sasuke video. I don't understand why I keep having you on
Uchiha
Sasuke
glaze,
videos.
I guess. It's the Uchiha stuff.
I just now noticed. Now today, as you can tell by the title and thumbnail, we're talking about it's a what if, but it's a versus battle video too, just switching the scenario around. Obviously, we're aware that in Shippuden, Sasuke was wanting to go invade the village and take his revenge on Danzo, the two elders, and by extension, the rest of the village too. But Obito kind of, stopped them at a couple points. So we're just kind of switching it around and seeing what would happen had Sasuke actually followed through with the invasion. Like, what if him and the rest of Taka went to actually just invade the village? Now we're going to do this in 3 separate scenarios, 2 sides of each of these 3 scenarios too, which we'll get into that later. But the first scenario is, and just for context, this is going to be the Taka that fought B in the Hidden Cloud village. So pretty much, baby MS Sasuke with Jugo, Suigetsu, and Karin. The way that we're going to do this, we thought about it in a couple of different ways. The first scenario is going to be if it's an infiltration rather than an invasion. We say that because it is up to interpretation about Sasuke's narrative view at this point. Yes, he's claiming revenge, but based off of what we see in the fight with Killer B, we see that he's noticing that all the members of Taka are sacrificing themselves for Sasuke, and it reminds him of Team 7 for a second. And although it's just it's just been him being reminded, it may not mean anything. Just the fact that he is still thinking of Team 7 in that kind of way when he's decided on revenge against the Leaf, it's kind of, it's up in the air. It's just, by this point, Sasuke isn't 100% driven crazy by revenge. So I feel like there's good call to say that, he wants Danzo and the elders for sure. But I think the rest of the villagers are up in the air. So if we go off the side that it's just infiltration and he wants to get Danzo first, and skipping some antics about him actually being able to infiltrate the village. I mean, he is from the Hidden Leaf village, so it's not too crazy to think he might be able to get through the village undetected. But again, skipping semantics about that and say he is able to infiltrate the the Root Foundation facility and try to track down Danzo to kill him. How would that go? So if we assume that he is able to succeed in infiltrating the facility and does manage to find Danzo, it won't just be Danzo, obviously, because the rest of the foundation is going to be with him. And yeah, you could say that he might say I'll take Sasuke by myself and this and that, which is fair, but also it is Taka with him, and I don't know. I just see it being a 4v4. The other 4 on Danzo's side would be Danzo, Fu, Torne, and possibly Sai. And I say those 3 because I don't really know what all the other Root Foundation members have. We barely have any feats for them to go off of. So if it's just the ones we saw, it'd be just Fu, Torne, and Sai, and Danzo versus Team Taka.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting match. I think Danzo will have more support, and I think a lot of that match is really interesting. And it just kind of goes off of how you interpret Danzo's later fight with a later Sasuke, a more powerful Sasuke, and how much stronger that Sasuke is. Now, me and Lightning are going to have a later section on that Sasuke in particular attempting this invasion, so we can get into that a lot more, but just for a brief rundown, Sasuke's MS is basically run on hatred. So the more hatred he gets and the deeper the darkness gets, the more powerful his ocular powers become until he basically just can't even be stopped. And immediately he's noted to surpass his curse mark state upon the first example of his chakra getting colder. And that's actually really interesting because we do know at the end of the B fight, when in Taka, he's noted to not even been fully recovered from his heavy state. So he might even be more powerful and heavy there. Whereas now, even this early Kage Summit Sasuke is greater. Then he gets another amp, developing the Susanoo further. Then he gets a full recharge from Zetsu. Then he gets unrecognizably stronger, and then Danzo's still fighting him. And even just before the unrecognizable amp, where he's still much more powerful, Danzo's able to react to even the Amaterasu, which most people don't give him credit for directly. He's able to react to that by putting his arm up, and he's also able to shoot the vacuum bullets. And this should be generally consistent with his lore as being the replacement for Hokage, which means to stand above the other nations. So he's at least fit to do so here, and it just kind of helps with that being consistent. So I actually think Danzo has a really good chance at winning, even if you don't want to give him the extra support. But I think it's still fair to at least say he has Fu and Torine kind of going to be guarding him like they were originally, even a little bit more close by now that they're actually in the Leaf. They're going to need to be protecting different things, and they might also be able to call more ANBU elite members over if need be, or there's just going to be more pressure on Taka. So I think Danzo, even the Danzo matches, is a really hard fight for Taka to get past.
It is really tough because, I mean, first of all, the intel that Sasuke will not have on Danzo's arm is all, I mean, it already was like a head scratcher to begin with. And the thing is I know I brought this up to Virtue. If we are like really being specific about this, there is no telling what kind of traps Danzo has in this facility. But also, we did bring this up, is that if worse came to worse, Danzo, because there's really no telling how many Sharingan like Danzo has stockpiled in his, room or whatever you want to call it. There's really no telling how many he has like in his supposed arsenal. So he could just have some of the Root Foundation members go and retrieve another Sharingan too, if worse came to worse, if he had to run out of Izanagi's or something like that. But I mean, we saw that Danzo was already kind of at different points kind of, making a joke out of Sasuke, calling his genjutsu like a night and day difference compared to Itachi's and whatnot. And we do see that he was able to grab a hold of Sasuke and put a paralysis seal on him. Without the Susanoo, Sasuke would have been cooked. Now, there is a decent call to say that he probably still would develop the Susanoo here, depending on, how pissed he gets with anything Danzo says, which is definitely likely, let's be honest. But would it involve as quickly and as strongly? Because Sasuke had to barrel through like several Kage to finally develop his Susanoo to the point where it was in the Danzo fight. It's up to interpretation, but I'm going to go off the side that it probably won't develop as fully as it did by the time of the end of the Kage Summit. So if that is the case, and if Danzo is able to do anything similar to how he did against Kage Summit Sasuke, this Sasuke will probably be cooked, even with help from Jugo, Suigetsu, and Karin, honestly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
All right, so the next scenario is going to be, what if he just actually straight up invaded the village? Like, no holds barred, it's an invasion. Taka just straight up, just try to pummel through the Leaf Village. You might maybe able to make a case that they try to, disperse, kind of similar to how all Six Paths of Pain did. But I'm not so sure. I think he'd probably want to have Taka close by. I mean, I know Karin needs to, because Karin is really the only one that could sense Danzo. So yeah, they probably still stay together. And I'll be honest, you're talking about Taka versus the entire Leaf Village, except for with the exception of Team Guy, obviously, because they're still out of the village. But you're still talking about Team Taka versus the entire Leaf Village. Some would even argue that just Kakashi and Tsunade would be enough. And in this scenario, Tsunade wouldn't have to rely on having to disperse hundreds of Katsuyu clones across the village, because, I mean, Taka's not going to be able to wreak as much havoc as Pain did with all the Six Paths of Pain and the animal summons. So, Tsunade won't have to, constantly be healing people. So, there have been people who say that Kakashi and Tsunade might be enough to deal with Taka. I'm not saying no, but it is depending on how you scale Kakashi specifically in this. Do you think that he's as strong as he was in the Kage Summit? I would argue he's probably not, because of the mental, amp he gets after the Pain invasion, where he meets his father, and he gets through his depression from that. So I do think this Kakashi is at bare minimum reaching into the heavy Sasuke level tier, which is definitely, definitely no joke. And another thing too is with Sasuke not having knowledge of Kamui here yet, because by this point he has not seen or heard anything about Kamui. God forbid it gets to that far, but if it did get that far, I mean, on its own, the fact that he doesn't have any knowledge of Kamui is going to be a big problem. Jugo and Suigetsu are tough, but like Jugo is really only, seriously, I'm not trying to downplay Jugo, but against some people like all the villagers and whatnot, he's really only a problem when he's in his giant water form, and there is no giant body of water in the Leaf Village. Like,
they're in the desert.
Like, don't get me wrong, Suigetsu is strong. Like, I am not downplaying him like whatsoever. But compared to people like Tsunade and Kakashi, I don't see Suigetsu being that much of a problem. Same with Jugo. Jugo is definitely useful to have on a team. But compared to people like Tsunade and Kakashi, I don't know. Just on speed alone, like, Sasuke with his base MS was able to react to the Raikage's elbow bolt at full speed. And Kakashi was able to warp. It's just Sasuke's Susanoo arrow at point blank range, and the Susanoo arrow is faster than Sasuke himself. Granted, I know this was a slightly stronger Kakashi, but I don't think it's too far in between as far as that feat goes. So Suigetsu is not going to be fast enough to try to blitz Kakashi whatsoever. And Tsunade, yeah, she could get hit a couple times, but like, we're talking about Tsunade here. So Amaterasu is really the only threat to Tsunade and Kakashi. Some would say Karin, and look, I know, I mean, Virtue was with me on that video. I know I stan Karin a lot, and rightfully so. And don't get me wrong, like, if you take Karin at its best and say that Sasuke can immediately drop it, that actually might be a problem for the Leaf Village. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The only thing I guess I could add is there are a couple arguments to even suggest that Taka Sasuke would be superior to Heavy Sasuke. But to defend Lightning, those two arguments are a bit awkward. So one of them is the Volume 45 back cover that states that Sasuke has ever increasing power. But that is, none of the words I just said are in the original Japanese at all. So that's just not even an actual statement. The third data book in the Shinobi Facts section has a progress chart for Sasuke, and it states that Sasuke, the boy genius, continues to show improvement. Now that he has awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, his numbers are bound to grow, right? Which could assert that he's continually growing even after losing the curse mark. Although I think it's more making a comparison between like Heavy Sasuke and comparison to like what he's gonna accomplish after his MS. I think all that's kind of just unknown. I don't think it's making an actual statement between Heavy to Taka, but rather Heavy to Kid, and then what Taka might be on top of that eventually at some future state. So yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with everything he said.
Yeah,
there.
so I mean, that's just Kakashi and Tsunade that we're talking about, and that's not really even factoring in if any of the villagers come to help. Because you do have people like the Inoshika Cho trio that could definitely come in and wreak some havoc on top of Tsunade and Kakashi. I mean, Shikaku alone can just stay back and just like look at the battlefield and analyze and come up with a strategy. Like, same with people like Shikamaru, same difference. Shino, if Shino's in there, like, yeah, he could definitely cause some problems with the Beatles and whatnot, especially for people like Jugo and Suigetsu. And maybe even Karin. Karin's going to be almost a non-factor as far as combat-wise. Like, she'll have to just completely hide for, like, the majority of the fight. And depending on how quick they can get Sasuke out of danger against all the other villagers, she may not have much time to heal him either. So, like, I don't know. If it's a straight invasion against the village, Killer Bee Taka fight Sasuke and Taka, like, they just, I don't know. It just does not go well for them. So now going on to the third scenario. What if they didn't fight the villagers, but they just so happened to get to the village when Naruto finishes his training? So like, it's just going to be Taka versus Sage Naruto. The Sage Naruto that fought Pain. It is a bit more like up in the air. I know some people would say. I've seen people like the first argument is like, Genjutsu. Sasuke's Genjutsu should be able to end Naruto here because him and Kurama are not friends here yet. Definitely a good argument, if we assume that Naruto has not made any clones yet, and the fact that Mom and Pa are on the field, they could break him out. I mean, Sasuke's Sharingan Genjutsu is good, but it's not Tsukuyomi level. Not yet, anyway. And so, like, I can't see it being potent enough. And if Killer B can get out, I mean, granted, it is the 8 tails, but like he snapped out of it like lickety split. It took him almost no time to get snapped out of it. So if we assume it takes like just as much time for Naruto if Ma and Pa are on the field, not to mention, I told Virtue, the fact that Sasuke is not going to know anything about Sage Mode in general is already going to be a problem. Like, not having knowledge of that Naruto has Sage Mode is going to be probably the biggest hassle for him. I mean, Sasuke didn't even know that Naruto had Sage Mode up until the war arc. And if he's going to start, he might notice that his eyes are different or something like that, but that's going to be the only thing he's going to be aware of. And so if they get in like a brave taijutsu fight, Sasuke might get cooked early on, because that frog Kumite is no joke. And I'm not trying to, downplay on Sasuke's durability here, but combine all that with the Odama Rasengans that Naruto is chucking out, Ma and Pa. A lot of people overlook Fukasaku's strength too, but his physical strength is ridiculous. He was able to pick Gamabunta up and throw him, and he did it like it was the easiest thing he's ever done.
Well, even to touch on, like, I was just gonna interject on the Fukasaku point. Like, the third data book talks about him in the Shinobi Facts section, and it goes over like like toads of like a higher rank are basically just like tremendously more powerful than the lower toads. Like Gamma, the one that blocks Samehada in part 1, is obviously a lot weaker than Gamabunta. But what most people don't know is like Gamabunta is like far inferior to like the head patriarch of Mount Miyaboku, which actually is Fukasaku, weirdly enough. So Fukasaku is actually kind of a monster, and we even know that like in the Pain fight, like their techniques were kind of scary in Pain. Like Ma's tongue that was wrapping around, Pain was like, oh, fast. He's like so fast, and he thought that in his head, like he didn't even say it out loud. Then obviously like Pa's like water blade could cut through the chameleon and stuff like that. So they are really monstrous, but they can even spar with Sage Naruto, which most people don't give them their credit for, but they are really powerful.
Pain made a point to get Fukasaku off the field, like at a certain point. So,
not for sure.
So yeah, and like we said, like I'm not trying to sleep on Jugo and Suigetsu, but again, Suigetsu is really only a serious problem when he has a giant body of water to use. Like against 3 Sage Toads and Ma and Pa and Sage Naruto, Jugo and Suigetsu, and Karin by extension, they don't really. I don't know. Am I downplaying on them at all? Like, do you think I'm like I don't think I am, but like
nah.
If I'm not mistaken, they don't really pose much of an issue for this team.
I mean, yeah, their best feat collectively is just reacting to like a version 1 unserious Raikage, and that's really it. Which I mean, he's sure he's powerful and he's like Darui level, but it's not Kakashi level. Like we know Jounin of Konoha are stronger than Jounin of other villages. Kakashi is stated to be the strongest Jounin in Konoha, so therefore I mean they're not even stronger than Kakashi. So no, I mean I think you're spitting.
And then it just really comes down to Sage Mode Naruto versus Taka Sasuke. And if Genjutsu isn't going to play a factor, then I said Karin earlier. Karin is a problem, 100%. Especially if you take it at its best, where Sasuke can just drop it. I've seen a lot of people argue like a giant Rasengan versus Karin, or giant Sage, Art Rasengan versus Karin, and how that go and this and that. I'm not entirely sure. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if. With the sensory, the Sage Mode sensory, I feel like Naruto is a possibility of being able to react to it. But the damage that it does, like, because I don't want to downplay Karin, right? But now, I mean, if we're taking it at its lowest, Sasuke is not going to have time to set it up 100%. Like, he's just not going to be able to. But if we did take it at its highest, and Sasuke is able to just drop it on the spot, like he was about to in the Tenchi Bridge arc, then maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can still drop it without the Amaterasu. I think he can use it with the Art of the Dragon Flame. That's what's implied in the third data book. But I also think that, like, generally speaking, he could use his own Amaterasu to heat the sky up if he wants a more powerful version to maybe attempt to one-hit KO Naruto, which really might happen. Although I'm not gonna say Naruto is just gonna big bolo tank it. Like I think that's a bit of an exaggeration for his durability. Although I will like to mention that like Sage mode, its biggest qualifier for like an amp is probably the durability. Like even when Naruto's training, he like falls off the mountain and lands on the giant stalagmites, and you know he's completely okay, not even like a cut or anything like that. So you know his durability is a lot greater than it was at any other point. So I think the case could be made, but I do still think Karin would at least damage him to where Sasuke could get the victory afterwards. I'm not going to say he's just going to tank it.
So like I think that like if we take Karin at its highest, then there's a possibility Sasuke could take it. But if we do take it at its lowest and say that he has to like, you know, have prep time in order to set it up, depending on like, if we're talking about narrative, I don't think Sasuke would start a fight with Karin. Karin kind of seems like a last resort type of jutsu personally. But again, like I said, he was, you know, considering dropping it on Team Kakashi. So it is up in the air depending on how you take it. But personally, we think that like at the end of the day, like Naruto has more going for him in this fight. I don't think Taka, you know, gets through Naruto and the team and the Sage team personally. Sasuke does have a good chance for sure, but I think Naruto takes this one like 8 to 9 out of 10 times.
Agreed.
All right, so now we're going to rewind and talk about if this was like Kage Summit Taka, and we mean like, I mean obviously Jugo, Suigetsu, and Karin say the same, but for Sasuke, this is like, you know, Danzo fight Sasuke. Like, how would Taka do in these all respective scenarios? So we're talking about Danzo. I mean, we already saw it. I guess like the only case I can make for Danzo here is what I said earlier. Like maybe he might still have some Sharingan still stockpiled in his facility that he can still, you know, have some of the root ANBU members go and fetch for him to still prolong the fight. But I mean, if we are giving Jugo and Suigetsu the biggest benefit of the doubt, they might be able to hold off the ANBU members to prevent that from happening. I don't want to sleep on Fu and Torine, but they're not like super elite ninja personally to me. They don't come across that. They were giving Obito a decent trouble, so I'll give them that. But I don't know. I just don't feel like the ANBU members will like play too much of a factor in this. So like it'll pretty much be like Danzo versus Sasuke anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just like, this kind of is a repeat of the previous match. I think there's not too many different things. I think perhaps maybe the scenario of where they're at. So, you know, someone might make the case that Sasuke's Hawk would be like limited from the battle. Although then I would just make the same case that like the giant Baku would be eliminated from the battle. So I think whatever way you want to take, I think it's kind of the same fight. Sasuke should obviously, presumably get the same amps and definitely come out superior. Now, though, he does have Suigetsu and Jugo to help him with that, so you could say they could probably take on Fu and Torine, or at least provide some pressure until Sasuke could then take them out.
So that's the scenario we're done. So now we're going to talk about the invasion of the actual Leaf Village. Now, if we're replacing, you know, B fight Taka Sasuke and replacing him here, it does become tougher. But the thing is, though, it's like, I don't know. I honestly, when it comes to people like Tsunade, Amaterasu is really the only issue. Enton and Amaterasu are really the only issues for someone like Tsunade, because I want to say that Susanoo puts pressure, you know, more pressure on, and it definitely does. But then we think back to what Tsunade did against Madara's Susanoo's and whatnot, and it's like, is Sasuke Susanoo really that much, you know, more of a, you know, a detriment to someone like Tsunade, who has plenty of backup with her? And again, if we're talking about like the, you know, the respective, because again, if Taka is all together in the same place, then all the other Jounin can come and combat Tsunade. And so we have people like Kakashi, the Ino Shikacho, any of the Konoha 12, aside from Lee and whatever. But you know, or Sakura too, if she needed to come in. So like, you have two tanks in Tsunade and Sakura already who could do substantial damage to Sasuke Susanoo if they're able to actually hit it. And then you have people like Ino Shikacho, Kakashi. I don't know. I want to say like Sasuke does perform way better here, but can the added pressure of Susanoo and Enton like do much?
I mean, So okay, so the Enton is one case for me, right? I think the Enton is kind of slept on, and it has a really good feat against A. See what I did there? Where essentially A is going to do the lateral bolt of pain, and he's sliding forward, and we actually do see that Sasuke can turn his head and wreck the entire Susanoo in Enton before A can continue moving. And yes, this is happening. It's happening while A is still moving if you just pay attention to the panels, which is a common criticism to this feat, but if you just look at the panels in order, you'll see that A is still moving here at his top speed. And then so the Enton is actually really fast. So no, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Enton definitely has a case to be made here as well. There are the other techniques too, like one you kind of hinted at, like the Susanoo arrow. That's another like far superior technique in terms of speed in regards to Sasuke himself. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you with the two speed techniques and how they would affect the battle.
So if it comes down to the invasion against the rest of the Leaf Village, I mean, how far do you think it gets? I mean, do you think Sasuke can actually? Because he got the Susanoo arrows, and we still have Karin. Karin can still do massive damage. So it's he definitely does kill some of the members of the village. That's 100% fact. But could the invasion be successful?
Honestly, I actually think so. I think with a peak Kage Summit Sasuke coming in here with Suigetsu and Jugo and then Karin to aid in the regeneration factors, I actually do think they could win. Here. I think it really comes down to the later match against Naruto. But yeah, I think honestly with this one, I think they definitely could win that.
My biggest thing, honestly, surprisingly, my biggest thing isn't Kakashi this time, right? It's Tsunade. It's like Tsunade, I feel like is like the one that just like could make the difference here. Just going off of what we've seen, how she did against. Granted, she did have like Kage level, backup, and so like I'm not trying to like completely give her all the credit, but like I don't know, just given what we've seen from Tsunade, I don't want to like completely downplay her. Instead, if she push came to shove, I think she's the one that like kind of finishes the job. Because it's personally to me, at the end of the day, if it is all four of them fighting against the rest of the village, then at worst it's just like a whole bunch of Jounin fighting Jugo and Suigetsu and Karin while Tsunade fights Sasuke. And again, like I said, like Enton and the Susanoo arrow and Karin are definitely problems for Tsunade. So Madara's arsenal and Sasuke's arsenal are different. So I'm not trying to but I don't know. I feel like if it doesn't work, if the invasion isn't successful, then Tsunade is the one that I feel like makes the difference in it.
Yeah. She's kind of like the tipping of the scales for sure.
So now we're gonna go on to Sage Naruto versus this same Sasuke. Sasuke definitely puts up way more of a fight, and I could definitely see him actually taking it this time. Granted, extremely high diff. Like you said, peak Kage Summit Sasuke is no joke, especially when we're talking about his two teammates, and then Karin constantly regenerating them. But I said like it just depends on how much credit you. Honestly, I feel like it might just depend on how much credit you give Jugo and Suigetsu and like how much they would help. Sasuke's gonna have to reserve a lot of his power in order to finally finish Naruto off. And so if he's just fighting against, like, God forbid Jugo and Suigetsu get taken care of relatively quickly, then it is going to be just Sasuke fighting Naruto, Bonpa, and then all the Sage Toads, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I agree. These two have a lot of narrative rivalries. Like we have the one in the last match with the earlier Taka form, and this is something me and Lightning were kind of going over before. But you notice how like the amps are almost the exact same in terms of the ocular progression and the Senjutsu addition. So we know that whenever Sasuke is getting the MS and using it for the very first time, Naruto is literally accumulating Sage Wudamao Miyaboku. They're literally being paralleled, and then we know they're stated to be equals during the summit. They're able able to enter mental scape. That's how close in power they are. And we know that even whenever they get power from Hagoromo, they get ways to amplify that power in ways that's already familiar to them. And you guessed it, it comes in the form of the Senjutsu addition and ocular progression, where the two are then equals at the end, where they can also go into a mental scape again, because that's how close in power they are. Except if you notice, that's at the end of each of those scenarios, where at the beginning, it's a little bit different because of the fact that that's just how the amps work. So for example, Sasuke, he gets more power over time as he acclimates to his own power, whereas Naruto gets all the power at once and then has to completely acclimate to his own ability later. Where then at the end of the summit now, compared to earlier, it's not so much of a large stat advantage for Naruto. It's now like their stats are probably equal, it's just going to different areas. For example, Sasuke is probably faster and whatnot, whereas Naruto is probably physically stronger. Now I would actually say that Suigetsu and Jugo might be able to make the extra difference, and the reason why I say that is just because they are literally just a very tiny tipping scale. That's all I mean, is they're just a tipping scale, to where like we know if Sasuke and Naruto were to fight, they would die, whereas with Suigetsu and Jugo, you have an extra fighter that Naruto might have to focus on, just in terms of that stamina wise. You could also say that Sasuke might be able to, drain Naruto out of the clones, out of the Senjutsu eventually, just by Tsunade techniques and stuff like that. I would suggest the Rasen Shuriken should be a problem, seeing that Sasuke did have trouble with Danzo's wind style throughout their fight, with some of the techniques like blowing the back out of the Susanoo and stuff like that. Although I think it could go either way, but I think generally speaking, the Susanoo is enough to give him an edge in terms of physicals, and I think you add Suigetsu and Jugo in there, and I think that might be a tipping scale for a high to extreme diff fight in Sasuke's favor.
Yeah, I can see that too. And the thing is, it's like, the surprise factor is Sage Mode still might play a thing, but I mean, I didn't want to. I just didn't want to downplay Sasuke in the last scenario in this specific fight, but I think I might have, because his intellect is kind of crazy, despite the fact that he was being totally caught off guard by Danzo's Izanagi. He was still able to figure out how to beat Danzo. I mean, like, and especially with this Sasuke, who has a lot more at his disposal. And I think that's what breaks the difference between both scenarios. He has more at his disposal here to be able to prevent himself from being taken out. I guess the main thing I can say for Naruto here, if he is able to get a good punch in on the Susanoo, it might do some serious. I mean, because we see that like his strength is almost comparable to Tsunade's. I'd probably put Tsunade like above this Naruto, but Naruto's strength is no joke though here. He was chucking up the rhinos like it was nothing. And so like, if he lands a good punch on the Susanoo, it may not initially crack it, but like you said, like if he is able to, penetrate an area that Susanoo's defense is where it's weakest, like in the back, like you said, then who knows? Maybe Naruto can provide an opening. And I guess the other thing too is that like his sensory is definitely going to provide a big help with Amaterasu. I mean, we saw that the Raikage was able to dodge it on instinct alone, and so like with that added sensory, there's a really good chance that you could say like Naruto might be able to do the same thing. Yeah, like you said, I think the Rasen Shuriken definitely plays a huge part in this. It just depends on like. It actually just might honestly depend on whose teamwork is better. Because like with Frog Song and the Rasen Shuriken and just the Sage Art Rasengans and whatnot, like.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say, I actually think if Fukasaku and Ma can actually play this right, I think Naruto's team could win, and again, a high to extreme diff fight. I think it's whoever out of the more tipping the scale characters, being the Sage Toads or Team Taka, I think whoever you think plays the better game out of those, I think decides the winner of this fight. I think generally speaking, I think Jugo and Suigetsu, in terms of fighters, have like greater versatility in what they're going to be able to do, but I would still say that Ma and Pa are physically stronger, and they do have the Frog Song Genjutsu that's just going to be deadly. They do have some more minor techniques, like again the Water Blade we mentioned earlier, some of the poison from the Acid Tongue, stuff like that. So there are some interesting techniques that could come out from either side. So I think if you think they play it well, or either Sasuke can't target them or doesn't know to target them, then I actually think Naruto's team would win here. And I actually do agree. I think Naruto can actually probably crack the Susanoo with his raw strength, to be honest.
So like we're not gonna like fault anybody because like, and don't fault us, because I think the way we're talking, it's we're we're pretty much saying it's 50-50. Like it could go either way. I don't think like I personally, I don't know about you, Virtue, but I personally, I'm not trying to be a cop-out answer here, but I don't know. I really can't decide who could definitively win this. If I really had to like make a definitive answer, and I say this when it comes to narrative, because I know you said that like, you know, there's that narrative implication that if Naruto and Sasuke fight, they'll both die. But at the same time, if we are talking about like bloodlusted Sasuke versus a Naruto who might be holding back, then you know, I think that might give Sasuke the slight edge because he's actually fighting with killer intent here, whereas Naruto, you know, more than likely won't be. You know, I know he'll try his best to like, you know, get Sasuke almost to the brink of death to be able to save him and whatnot, but I think the killer intent on Sasuke's side might slightly push it over the edge if I had to give it to somebody, but I think for the most part it is 50-50.
I agree, and I think that's exactly how the series portrays it. You know, they would die if they fought. They're stated to be equals. So I think they are 50-50. I think the winner of it is always going to be, you know, scenario typical, to be honest. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
There you all have it. I think the most thing that personally, I think if I had to guess what we're going to get crap for, or what I'm going to get crap for, is maybe downplaying Jugo and Suigetsu, which I don't want to do, because like Virtue did mention earlier, like in the Kage Summit, they did boast some pretty good feats, you know, reacting to the not so serious yet Kage, which is definitely nothing to sleep on. But I think if I did get crap for anything in this video, it's probably going to be that I slept on Jugo and Suigetsu. But again, for Suigetsu at least, without a body of water, he's not like too threatening. But I mean, he still could provide a lot of support for Sasuke in this fight. So
I mean, like, look. I mean, look at it like this, right? You know, people can make the cop-out answer of, like, gag, although I wouldn't say it's a gag in either, you know, Jiraiya and Tsunade's position or Naruto and Sasuke's, but, like, Karin and Suigetsu are stated to fight like cats and dogs in the third data book, and it's stated that Karin always wins. So no one's arguing that Karin's going to be making the difference. You know what I mean? But it's like, well, technically, if you think, you know, Jugo and Suigetsu are, then she is too, but no one's going to argue that. So, I mean, they are strong the later you get into the series, but they're just not like monsters or anything like that.
So there y'all have it. There's the, you know, Taka invasion and seeing how well it went. I mean, for the most part, in most scenarios, it doesn't go so well. You know, there's a couple that, you know, Sasuke could, you know, come out on top and actually destroy the village. But yeah, so there y'all have it. There's the video. Thank you all for watching. Virtue, thank you so much for being on the channel again.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's great. Subscribe to Lightning, subscribe to me. We both have videos you guys can learn from, so yeah, check out more of our
100%. Yeah, like I said, I'll leave a link for this channel in the description below, but if you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to the channels if you haven't already. Till our next one, Lightning Snow out.